Hello everyone, and welcome to the Summer of 2020 Professional Development Series with the Mohawk Regional Information Center. I'm Chris Schaefer with the Model Schools team, and before we get started with today's session, I just wanted to give you a quick overview of some of the upcoming topics we have throughout the rest of the summer. The first group of sessions I'd like to present are the ones that will be presented just like the one you're attending today via YouTube Live. Some of the topics you'll see are creative uses of Google Sheets on July 20th, interactive notebooks using Google Slides on July 21st. Start writing with Google Keep on July 22nd. Using technology for authentic assessments in the elementary classroom on July 28th. And hacking G Suite with the Explore tool on July 29th. The next set of sessions are virtual meetings or professional development held in software like Zoom, WebEx, or Google Meet. Some of the topics include virtual meeting faux pas today, July 16th. Building relationships with students in an online environment, July 28th. Motivating students in an online environment, July 30th. And maximizing virtual manipulatives in elementary mathematics on August 4th. The next set of sessions are online courses or professional development held in fully online formats. Some of the sessions are already ongoing, such as digital breakouts, motivating students with technology, the Google Level 1 certification prep, and just this week we started the Choose Your Own Adventure game. We do have more of these online courses upcoming. Those that are still coming include Google Sites for Beginners, July 20th, Motivating Students with Technology on July 27th, and Google Sites More Than a Website on August 11th. Don't forget, all of these sessions are available at morg.org/pd. And now over to Derek for today's session.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Derek Lalone. I'm one of the instructional technology specialists here at the Mohawk Regional Information Center. And today what we're going to be talking about is an online tool called Classcraft and how we can gamify virtual learning using this tool. It has a lot of game-based elements built into it that I feel like a lot of classrooms can leverage, and especially if we are teaching in a virtual environment, it gives us a lot of different ways to kind of engage with and keep our students engaged in the content that we're teaching. So without further ado, I'm going to bounce over to a quick presentation here, and then we'll get right into the mechanics of how to use Classcraft within the classroom. All right, so like I said, before we get started in Classcraft, I just have a brief few slides that I want to show you to kind of introduce some of the core concepts that come with Classcraft and kind of the gaming world in general. I always like to start things off with just showing some statistics about gaming in general. So as you can see by the slide here, is that the majority of Americans are gaming, whether it's something as simple as Candy Crush on your phone, or something like a console or PC where you're putting a lot of money into it to have the best performance. We're also getting to the point now where esports is a growing industry, and we're finding that many colleges are offering scholarships and endorsement deals once they get out of college if they decide to go pro. So it's really one of those things that's kind of taking the forefront of our culture. And one of the stats that I like, and some people it's kind of that if it's good or bad, but the last one there where it says the average child has played 10,000 hours before the age of 21. Some people like that number, some people don't. I look at it from the angle of that's 10,000 hours that you had a child engaged in something. Now, whether or not it was educationally beneficial or not, remains to be seen. But at the same time, there was something built out there that kept somebody engaged for 10,000 hours. And I think that's something that's really important when we talk about gaming, is the engagement factor, especially when we're talking about students. So with that, to kind of give you an overview of the way Classcraft works, it does a lot of different things. So it's kind of that behavior management system, kind of similar to what Class Dojo does for the younger kids, but it also has the ability to kind of integrate curriculum into it as well. But the way that Classcraft works is essentially every student gets to choose what type of class they are, whether a warrior, mage, or healer. And as they kind of progress through Classcraft, whether it's completing assignments, staying on task, however you want to customize this, they'll gain kind of levels, and they'll gain powers. So the more the students are on tests, the more work that they're doing, the more they'll be able to level up within the game, and the more that they'll be able to, in this case, build out powers. The really cool thing about this is that Classcraft makes this collaborative, so a lot of the powers that your students are earning don't necessarily help the student, but help the team that the student's a part of. So we're taking that kind of team-based point of view. I was trying to think of a better word. But really what it's doing is, as the students are, gaining powers, gaining experience, they have the ability to help out their teammates. And really that's kind of something that happens on the back end of Classcraft. So we're not talking about, getting away from the curriculum or anything like that, but we are looking at it from the perspective of the students are working through a curriculum through the portal of Classcraft, but at the same time they have this game on the back end where they can kind of start strategizing and using different strategies to kind of help their team be the winner, essentially. So as I move forward here, just a couple of quick things. Classcraft is collaborative. So as I talked about before, it is team-based, so you can set up all of your students into different teams, and basically each student is holding every other student accountable. So if a student is doing something to affect their team score negatively, and that doesn't mean behaviorally, it just means, it could mean a lot of different things, and I'll show you what that looks like when we get into the platform. But it also allows students to help each other out, and also to strategize how to best help each other out. Impacts real life. So one of the nice things about this is when we do integrate curriculum, when we do integrate, classroom behavior and things like that, it's impacting the real world. So we're not kind of disconnecting them from the everyday classroom. We're just kind of adding this kind of gamified layer over top of it to kind of help keep the engagement and enhance the experience. And the great part is that it's customizable. So it can be scaled down all the way down to, pre-elementary level, all the way up to high school and beyond. So I think that's one of the really neat things about this, is that it can be scaled to fit any kind of learning modality. So moving forward, just to kind of give you a couple quick hits on what the Classcraft's toolkit looks like. Like I said before, we do have the ability to kind of put existing curriculum inside of Classcraft. And one of the cool things about this is it does have a Google Classroom tie-in. So if you have all of your assignments built out in Google Classroom, you can very easily port them over into the quests in Classcraft, and we'll talk about that in a little while. It also has that classroom management piece. So whether or not we are, learning virtually or learning in a face-to-face classroom in the fall, it has those classroom management pieces that you can go in and fully customize. So you can create positive behaviors and negative behaviors. And you have full customization to set that up however you want. And there's also in-class tools. So there's some randomizers, timers, volume meters, things of that nature, which we'll talk about as well. This is kind of the screenshot of the quest, and when I talk about personalized learning, the really cool thing that we can do within Classcraft is that we can create kind of a quest map. So very similar that you see in a lot of video games that are out there. I can go in and I can customize my curriculum, and each one of these little points can be tied to a Google Classroom assignment. So now the students have the ability, not only to just kind of turn in the assignments, but now they're progressing through different levels until they get to the end. So it's just kind of changing the way that they're looking at the assignments. Instead of just something that I have to turn in, it's how I get from point A to point B. Some of the other things I like to talk about is the vocabulary within not only Classcraft but gaming. Classcraft does change it up a little bit, but the first thing they have is what's called experience points. So the experience points are how students level up, and they're awarded that whether they're completing assignments, they're staying on task in the behavior, just points that you're awarding in general, or we have a thing called random events, and sometimes the random events will just award points to a certain team. This is how students level up. They go from level 1 to level 2. They unlock more powers to be able to use within the classroom. Health points, which is the life meter. So if we kind of look at that in the scope of gaming, it's basically you have a life meter, and the more you get hit by enemies, your life meter goes down, and then when it's done, you get knocked out and you start over from your save point. The same thing happens in Classcraft. Is we can do it in a lot of different ways. You can do it behaviorally, obviously. Instead of awarding positive behavior, you can kind of take away for negative behavior. And at the same time, we have something called boss battles, which is kind of like a review area where you can put up a bunch of questions, and if the students get the questions wrong, then they'll get hit by the boss, and their life meter will go down as well. So as soon as they hit 0, they're knocked out for the day. Cool thing about that is that if you have healers on your team, one of the other healers in your classroom, if they have the correct power, they can bring you back to life, and you can still participate in the rest of the day. So that's where that team aspect comes in. Action points, that's kind of the closest equivalent to what mana is in video games. So for those of you that aren't familiar, mana is kind of the magic. So you have your health and then you have your magic, and depending on what class you are, so if you're a warrior, you're not going to have as much AP to use. You're not going to have as much magic. Whereas you're a healer and a mage, your action points are going to go up, and you're going to have more of that mana to use, in your everyday working with your team and working with other students. And then finally, the gold pieces, that's in-game currency, so very familiar with the way that typical game mechanics works. You can earn money in this, and the more money you earn, the more you can unlock more costumes, more gear, and things of that nature. So that's a really cool kind of tie-in as well. So that's about all I have for the presentation. Now what we're going to do is we're going to jump right over into the online platform, and we're going to kind of give you a tour of what Classcraft looks like and some of the many different things that you can do. So this is the Classcraft website. So if you open up a browser and you just go to classcraft.com, it's going to take you to a website that looks something very similar to this. Just a couple things really quick to review is if I go over the pricing structure here really quick, you can do a lot for free, and that's kind of the version that we're going to go through today is the free version. We'll talk about what you get with the premium and the district piece. For the premium, you get just a couple kind of add-ons, and then students will have the ability to purchase extra gear and pets with their characters. And then as a district, you get kind of the premium features, but then you get a whole lot of analytics built into it. The cool thing about Classcraft, and I know, this being New York State, we have our EdLaw 2D. Both the free version and any of the paid versions are on EdLaw 2D contracts, so they can be used throughout the state at no detriment to the school district. So that's one of the cool pieces with Classcraft as well. So with that, I just kind of wanted to show you, a brief overview of the pricing and jump back in. So what I'm going to do is over here on the right hand side, I'm just going to log into my account, and it does use Google authentication. It kind of skipped over because I've logged in before, but you can sign up with just a username and password, or if you just want to use your Google authentication pass-through, you can do that. And if you want to integrate Google Classroom into this, I strongly recommend doing the Google pass-through as well. So this is our dashboard. You can see I already have a couple classes set up here. And then we also have a demo class. The really cool thing about the demo class is that Classcraft kind of gives you a demo class to play in to show you all of the different features that you would get with premium. So if you want kind of an unlocked version to go in and play with like a fake student data set to kind of mess around with, you can use that demo class to do it, which is really cool. So we have our homepage here. We have our activity page, and as you can see, not a lot going on. I have a couple notifications. And then we also have my library, which we're going to talk about in a little while. So to get started with creating a classroom, you can see I kind of have a light mode and a classic mode example set up here. If I select new class, I can set this up as a light mode, which is really kind of geared more towards a full classroom environment. So we're not really breaking up into teams or anything like that. It's more of a classroom behavior screen that goes up on the screen. And then you have the ability to kind of add and take away points as the day goes on, and then you also have the ability to do some like boss battles and things like that. When we look over here to classic mode, that's when we're talking about breaking it up into teams. Every student gets their own individual character. It's much more customizable, and then you also get those quests where we can go in and we can actually create customized quests and tie that to our curriculum. So if this is something that you are thinking about using in that virtual environment, I would definitely go with classic mode because you just get a lot more customization and a lot more engagement features built in. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and click on classic mode and hit next just to kind of show you what it looks like. I'm going to call this test classroom. And what's nice about this is that it does break it down into school levels. Really, the only difference in these school levels is when it comes to some of the different like random events and things like that it programs. If we do kind of an early elementary, a random event could say something like, for the next 20 seconds, your classroom gets to have a dance party, or your virtual learning environment gets to have a dance party, or something along those lines. Whereas we look at it from, more of the high school perspective, it'll do more things kind of game-based, like, okay, every healer in the classroom gets an extra 250 XP for the day, and it kind of throws random things at you like that. So just depending on what level you choose, it'll depend on kind of some of those little things that happen within some of the random events. So in this case, I'm going to keep it with early elementary, and I'm just going to go down to other for the classification and hit next. So you can see my test classroom is now created, and they're all kind of color-coded, so I can keep them separate. The really cool thing about these test classrooms is that they make you essentially level up before you can even start going through Classcraft. So they give you kind of a series of tasks that you have to click through. And I'll just go through the first one. And what this will do is this kind of gives you an overview of the behaviors that you can program inside the platform. And when I'm all done, you can see it checks it off. I can go into review powers. I can then go into assign my students, which I can connect to my Google Classroom and import them directly in. And then when I'm all done, I have my student introduction, which gives me all of my introduction materials to send to the students and parents as well. So I'm not going to go through all those steps, just because I want to be able to kind of show you what the mechanics of the system look like. But that is how you would essentially set up your classrooms, that you would go through and kind of complete each individual task, and then you'd be able to enter your classroom. So with that being said, the first one that I want to show you is an example of a light mode classroom within Classcraft. So I have one created here, and if I just hit play, it's going to open that up. And like I said before, like you're kind of given this board. And this board is essentially a behavior board. And right now we have kind of challenges set up. And a lot of these are set up, daily and actually for the teacher. But when we're using it with students, what we want to do is really it's just meant to, if I hit the plus sign, these are my XP tasks. So as a teacher, they give me some kind of template-based ones. So you can see we have 125, 150, but then I can go in and I can reward I could say was quiet during class, which I know probably isn't the best example, but I can assign 200 XP to it, hit save, and now that becomes one of those things where if I come in and click on it, my class just earned 200 XP. So, like I said, this isn't set up to be individualized for each student. This is more of that, classroom top-down looking piece, where I can go in and I can assign positive behaviors, and then my classroom has the ability to level up. Underneath that, we have our class tools on the left-hand side. So we have our game dashboard with the flag and our class tools over here on the left-hand side. If I click on the class tools, these events port over into the classic mode as well. So what we have are these random events that I talked about, and because we're at early elementary, if I click on one of those events, I can come in and you can see I have 1 of 6 events used for the day. I can go in, I can view all the events, except when it tells me that something went wrong. We'll try that again in a minute. But what I can do is if I just hit see event, it's going to automatically pull up a random event that's going to happen in class. So in this case, for the next class, everyone must wear a distinctive accessory. So if we're talking about virtual learning, have them turn on the emojis or any of the masking that they have and, make the funny faces and do all that good stuff. So we have our random event for the day. I can hit next. It brings me back to my dashboard. I can go back into my class tools and I can come in, hit another event, and you can see here's our dance party. The floor is yours. So you can kind of see, because it's geared more towards elementary, you get a lot more kind of the early elementary bonuses that are available. I'm going to try to get into the view events one more time. And I still got a noob, something is wrong. So we'll try it again in the classic mode just to see if that makes a difference. But if I click on the class tools again, we have this middle section here called the Magus Valley. And the way that this is set up is this is kind of a volume timer. Now this is more kind of oriented for in-class participation rather than, looking at it from a virtual learning standpoint, but I do kind of want to show it off, is that I can kind of set this up to say, okay, if everybody's quiet, you get 250 XP. I can add a timer for like 5 minutes if I want to. I'm not going to, just for the purposes of the exercise. If I hit next, I can set my volume meter, and you can see it's registering already in my microphone. So if I bump it up to right around here and hit start, now if the classroom noise level gets too high, once it hits max, they won't be awarded the points for the day. If they stay under the max, then they will. So once I'm all done and we're good to go, if I hit finish, my classroom was just awarded 250 points in their XP to hopefully level up. So this is our boss battle area, and basically what this does is, you can see right here, it's formative review. It's not meant to be a true assessment. It's actually more meant for the teacher to interact with your students in class. So think of it as, anytime that you've done a review, like through a Jeopardy game or like a Wheel of Fortune type PowerPoint template or something along those lines, this is what the boss battles are meant to do. I can go in and I can preload any questions that I want, and then students, I would present the boss battle to them. The students would answer the questions, and depending if they got the answer right or wrong, myself as the teacher would say, okay, the student got it wrong, and you can see down here at the bottom, their life meter would slowly go down. So every wrong answer they would get, their life meter would go down. If they hit 0, they're knocked out for the day. So to kind of show you what that looks like, I'm going to go ahead and hit the edit button on one of these. And this is just a basic trivia quiz that I put together. But when I create a new battle, I can come in and I can customize which boss I want to use. Now, as you can see, because I'm using the free version, and we only get our frightened Walzer here. So if you do upgrade as a district, you do have kind of the customization to really come in and create some cool different boss battles. But from there, I can choose my boss. I can choose their life meter, so how strong I want them to be. And then I can come in and I can set up my questions. So just like a lot of the other kind of areas where we can create different assessment questions and things like that, I can come in and I can add a new question. And you can see we have a pretty good editor here. We can insert images, we can insert videos. So anything from YouTube, if you want to preface it, you can pop that in as well. Any hyperlinks that go out to outside websites, you can do that as well. So I can just pop in my question from here. I can say short text or multiple choice. So if you want to set up a multiple choice review for all of your students, I can go in and add my answers, and they'll be good to go. You can also see for each question, I can give it a point for how much it'll take away from the life XP of our boss. So in this case, just think of it like an assessment, 2 questions, 50 points apiece for 100 points total. So you do kind of have to set it up to make sure the math is right. But once we're good from there, you can see I am assigning a award of 200 XP when my students are all set. And now I can come in and when I hit next, it'll actually open up the review. So here it is, our Frightened Walzer versus my model schools like classroom, which are all my entire classroom. If I hit the checkbox, it'll show me the question. I hit reveal answer, and I decide as the teacher whether they got it right or wrong. I'll hit wrong. And now you can see the model schools classroom got hit. And then how many legs does a spider have? They got the correct answer. And now you'll see the Walzer's life go down, but because there's only 2 questions and you didn't get them both right, you lost the boss battle. So I'll talk a little bit about that more once we get into the classic mode, but I did want to kind of give you an overview of these 3 tools as we jump into some of the other classroom modes. So like I said, the light mode is really geared towards an entire classroom worth of students, and just something that you want to use as kind of a quick kind of bellwether. Now I want to get into the classic mode, where we can actually go in, create our students, and have the ability to really kind of let them customize and let you customize as the teacher their experience that they're having in Classcraft. So with that, we are going to jump into the classic mode right over here. So this is our classic mode of Classcraft, and one of the first things that you're going to see right out of the gate is, it's no longer that classroom environment where it's showing all of the characters. You're now seeing a student list, which is just our test students that we pulled in from a test domain that we have. But you can see that each individual student has their own class and different set of powers. So the students have the ability to go in and kind of customize who they want to be. Now, with that being said, one of the things the students have to strategize is if I'm in a team of 15 people, let's say, you don't want 15 warriors in there, because then you're not leveraging the power of the healer and the mages. And if your warrior gets knocked out in battle or gets knocked out of class for the day, there's nobody to essentially resurrect him so he can keep playing the game. So it's one of those things where you can kind of customize this for your students, so you can set them up in their own teams, or you can give them their own class beforehand, so you can go in and kind of create the avatars for them. But if you do give them the ability to create their own avatars, those are things that they have to think about and kind of strategize as they're building out their team. So with that, like I said, I can kind of click down through, and what you'll notice is a lot of these students haven't set up their avatars yet. So I'm going to go through quickly what it looks like to set up an avatar from the student side of things. And if I come in and I hit this little setup character, these are the 3 different classes that we talked about. So we have our warrior, mage, healer, and you can see the healing points and the action points are different depending on which class that you select. So in this case, let's say I want to select a warrior. I'm going to select my warrior, hit next. I can choose my ethnicity and gender. I can hit next. And now this is where I can choose my starting power. So I can look at these and I can say, which power set up here at the top of the screen is the one that I want to start with. So to kind of give you an example of what the powers look like, with hunting highlighted here over here on the right, it says the warrior gets a 10-minute video meeting with the teacher. So basically that means if I want to use and deploy that power and I have enough AP to do that, if I hit the button, then the teacher will get notified that, hey, this student used their power to have a 10-minute video meeting with you, and then the teacher can go ahead and set that up. Same thing with first aid. This one, the warrior gains 1 healing point for each level they have, but always gains at least 5 healing points. So if I turn on this power, it's basically whatever level I am. So 1, 2, 3, or 4, I'll get that many healing points, but then also an additional 5. So depending on how I'm doing in class that day, I can kind of keep myself alive with this first aid kit. And then our protect. So in this one, the warrior can take up to 10 damage instead of a teammate, receiving only 80% of set damage. So if you do have a student that is in a boss battle or something like that, they're going to fall in battle. What'll happen is when that student is on the brink of being knocked unconscious, the team will get a notification saying, hey, this student's about to get knocked out. Do any of you want to use your powers to help this teammate survive? So you have the option of either kind of, conserving your powers for you or helping out your teammates, which I think is a really cool kind of feature that's built into it. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm actually going to light up first aid here and hit finish to start off my power. So now you can see that this student's all set up. Their avatar is created. Their HP, AP, and XP are right here. Their gold is at 50. And one thing to mention about gold, it is only available in the premium version. So what the students have here is pretty much all they're going to get unless you upgrade to premium, which doesn't take away any of the fun or the ability to level up. It just kind of takes away the ability for like those pets and like some of the extra cool gear that they can kind of customize the appearance of their characters with. So with that, from the student perspective, what we can do is I can come in and I can kind of gear my behaviors toward the individual student, or I can do it from the team level. So in this case, I'm going to do it from the student. If I hit the plus sign here, these are the examples that Classcraft puts in for us. But what you can see here is that we have a quick hit for a quick reward. So if I want to go in and kind of create my own custom score for that student, in my description, I'll just say being cool. And hit apply. And it was quick to see, but you'll notice that the XP jumped from 200 to 400 as soon as I applied that. And it boosted them up for the day. At the same time, if I need to penalize my students, I can come in, I can hit the negative, and I can say, okay, being rude to a classmate, I'm going to take away 10 of your healing points. So this is that message that I talked about before, is the team response will pop up, and the team will have the ability to say, I can let that student take damage, or I can use one of my powers to help them out. So if I hit let this student take damage, you'll see that their HP went from 80 down to 70. So it is really all team-based. Every decision that they're making, every kind of penalty that they incur, the team has the ability to kind of bail them out from it. And that's kind of one of the really neat things about this. And then over here on the right, what I can do is I can come in and I can create a library of my own custom behaviors. So if I click on this, I can create my own library of positive and negative behaviors. So if I want them at the ready, I can just go in, create them beforehand, and they'll be available for all of my students all the way through. At the same time, from the drop down, I can modify points manually. So I can go in and essentially, if I just, even for fun, want to knock down every student to 1 HP, just for the sake of doing it for a class and running it as an experiment and a fun little game, I have the ability to do that. I can go in and just say, okay, I'm knocking you down to A, B, and C, hit the checkbox, and it'll automatically apply to that student. So there's a lot of different kind of, game-based portions that you can incorporate into this outside of just the behavioral context of those behaviors. So that's how we can do it with the student. What I do want to show you is if I come over here to Teams, this is the teams that I set up as my teachers. So you can see I set them up between Letterkenny and Sunnyvale. So my students are already set up. And what you'll notice, is if I look, you can see I have 3 characters set up on Letterkenny, 3 characters set up on Sunnyvale, and then these are all my students that have yet to set up their character. Now, like I said before, I can either let my students create their characters, or I can go in and I can kind of do it myself for the students, so I can kind of pre-create their avatar, so there's no fighting over which character gets what. If I select Manage Team at any given time, I can split my teams up, or I can slide users over and kind of trade them out however I feel. So even if at one point in the school year I want to switch my teams up, I can just go in and switch them up. Or if I want to split them up into a third group, I can add another team. So if I were to add another team, Team 3, I'll just leave it at Team 3. I'm not creative enough right now to think of a cool name. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the crest that I want them to have, and then at the same time I can pick a really cool background for my team, hit save, and now I can move some students over into that team to kind of help balance things out. And when I hit finish, you'll see my Letterkenny, Sunnyvale, and Team 3 pop up. So from the classroom behavior perspective and the awards of kind of that positive and negative piece, you can see I can also do it by team. So instead of coming down here and doing it on an individual character, I can come up and I can hit the plus sign for the entire team. So I can come in and say, everybody completed their online activities on that team. Everybody gets 150 XP. I can also do the same thing at the team level. If they're not communicating, being unparticipative, I can hit -5 HP. And now I can either say deal with damage later, or I can hit apply damage, and it'll automatically knock their damage down. So there's a lot of customization just from kind of the behavioral perspective. And I can kind of click across the top here too to access my teams quickly. But this is just from that, classroom behavior perspective and the engagement perspective. What's next is I really want to go through kind of some of the class tools that are available, and not only the class tools but the quests that are available, where now we have kind of the basis set up, we have our team set up, we have our behavioral pieces set up. Now we can get into actually integrating our curriculum directly into Classcraft. So I'm going to jump back to the dashboard here. So before we jump into the classrooms and the quests, one of the things I want to show you is what happens when a student's HP hits 0. So if their healing points, if they fall in battle essentially, I'm going to go ahead on this student And I'm just going to give them a quick penalty of 30. And description, you know what you did. I'm going to hit apply. It's going to knock that person down. So right here you can see he needs 1 HP or he'll fall in battle. We can kind of set that up however we want. Our team can go in and decide to give them healing points if they decide, but in this case, as the teacher, I'm going to let this guardian fall. And now, when a student falls in battle, they get applied a sentence. So in this case, you can see their sentence is to make a meme about the attitude you could put forth to improve your remote learning. If I click on that, what's going to happen, and I'm going to go ahead and apply the damage, is now when that student logs in, they're going to see a sentence there, and now they know they have to fill that out. From the teacher perspective, if I go back to my homepage here, right here I have a quick little summary. I have 2 sentences that are waiting to be achieved, and once those sentences are achieved, I can mark them off, and their sentence is basically complete. So that's one of those cool features built in that I want to be sure that I showed you before we jumped into the class tools portion and things like that. So if I go into my class tools, you'll see I'm logged into a free account right now, so I don't have access to the White Mountain, Forest Run, and the Treasures of Tavros. I'll log into the demo class in a minute and kind of show you what those 3 look like. But for now, what I want to do is I want to go through the 2 tools that weren't included in the light mode. So the random events, the Riders of A, the Magus Valley, the volume meter, and the boss battles, the formative review, they all work the same on both sides. So however you want to set it up, that's how it will work. But in this case, the Wheel of Destiny, all that is a random picker. If I select this and if I can pick a team or a player, if I select a player, it'll pull a single student up. I can ask them a question. If they get it wrong, hey, I'm going to knock off 5 HP from their life, from their healing points. Or if I want to reward them for getting the answer right, I can give them 10 points for getting the question correct. I can kind of set that up however I want. And then I can just kind of keep hitting the students here at the bottom. And then if I hit reset, it'll bring it back around. So we have our random picker here. And like I said, we can do a team as well. So you can see in this case it picked Team 3, Sunnyvale, or Letterkenny, and I can assign a team score as well. So depending on how I want to set it up, I can kind of use that random picker at my leisure. And then underneath that, we have the Shrine of the Ancients. So what this is it's a bulletin board. It's a bulletin board for students. So what the students have the ability to do is they can send positive messages to their team or to an individual student at any time that they want. So if they just want to message each other back and forth, it'll post to a bulletin board. The good news with that as a teacher is that I have to go in and approve every one of these that gets popped up to the bulletin board. So when we, go back to our student here that has the sentence of write a kudos to a classmate, what they're going to do is they're going to click on their Shrine of the Ancients. They're going to create their kudos. They're going to post it to the wall, and then you are going to check your inbox to see if you have any that are waiting for approval, and then when you approve them, you publish it to the wall and they'll pop up here. So you'll essentially have kind of an internal bulletin board of all the positive behaviors that students are putting up. And this is also a good place for them to post questions as well, is that they can post it to their team, they can post it to an individual student, and they can kind of set that up. And then you have the ability to kind of present those so the students can kind of work together through the bulletin board as well, which I think is a really cool feature that's set up. So the other 3 features, I will quickly bounce over into the other classroom here. So I'm just going to go back to my home page, log into my demo class, come into my class tools. And like I said, this is the example of the premium features that they give users within their classroom. The White Mountain is just a timer. So I can come in, I can click this, I can set it for however long I want. I can hit start, I can hit finish. And now, if their time's up, I can make the decision to award points to the players or the teams, or I can just X out and use it as a timer. The Forest Run is a stopwatch, so I can just go ahead and Hit that when I'm ready. Hit finish. Same thing. So if we're running a race in the classroom or something along those lines, I can award my points. If I don't need to, I can just X out and just use it as a classroom timer. Next to this is the Treasures of Todd. So this one is probably the biggest piece of the premium feature that you'll see. If I click on this, this is where I can come in and I can actually award points and award grades. The other cool thing about this, and this is kind of the biggest selling point for it, is over here on the right hand side. I have the ability to import my assignments directly from Google Classroom, so I can kind of run this as a grade book as well with it directly tied to my Google Classroom, which I think is a really cool feature that's built in. So I just kind of wanted to point that out to you. As far as what you would get with the premium features or the district features if your district decided to purchase it. So that's kind of the overview of the class tools that I have set up. The next part we're going to talk about is we're going to jump into the quest area. So next up on the list, what we have are quests. So this is where we can take our curriculum that we're using in our everyday classroom and integrate it into the Classcraft system. So over here on the left hand side, underneath our class tools, we have this little area called quests. If I go ahead and click on that, you can see that I've already set up a quest here, but I just kind of want to take you through it from kind of a beginning and starting perspective. Is what we have the ability to do is we can create our quests anywhere along this map. So what I can do is if I hit this add quest right here, and it says click anywhere on the map to place your quest. So I can build out the maps for all of my individual levels. So I can come over here, and let's say I want to build a quest over here. And depending on how creative you are, you can just call it Unit 1 if you want, or if you wanted to, kind of zhuzh it up a little bit, as the kids say, you can add a name in here. For the purposes of today, I'm just going to call it Unit 1, but please feel free to express your creativity and make this as game-based as possible. That's kind of the purpose of this. But what we can do now is we can select a quest map. So we can look at the map, and we can say we have kind of the master quest, which is what we created, and now all the mini missions, or let's say the lessons in this particular unit, are going to be created on one of these maps. So let's just say I'm going to pick this one, and I hit next. And I can say which classes do I want to apply it to. I'm going to apply it to all classes and hit next. So now here is my quest area. So now what I can do is I can choose a starting area to kind of start the quest. And in this case, I'm going to start right up here in the upper left-hand corner because it looks like we can do a nice little path from A down to B. So I'm going to start my quest right here. And all this is an introduction. Now, like I said, you can make this, as plain as possible, but the purpose of this is to really get your student engaged and to kind of put it into a quest-like environment. So you can say, for your journey, I could spell it. Be learning the basic concepts of, and I'll just keep it generic and say something. What you'll also notice is that you can drag and drop files in, you can upload files, you can connect it from Google Classroom, so if you want to attach a syllabus, anything along those lines, you have the ability to do so. Same thing as before, we can insert images, we can insert videos from YouTube or an embed code, or we can insert a hyperlink that goes out to the video. So we can embed dynamic content into this. But in this case, I'm just going to leave it nice and plain and hit save. So there's my introduction. It's all set. You can see I have 6 students that it has been assigned to. The green checkbox shows us how many students have gone through it, and the red one shows us how many have essentially not gone through it, not turned it in, not saved their progress. So that's our introduction, and we need one of those for every quest level. So that's just introducing the unit. And from there, this is where we can now come in and we can start creating that content. So now I'm going to add an objective. and I'm going to click a map somewhere. So I'm going to click it right here to start our objective, and I'm just going to call this lesson. So what you can see is we have 4 different areas in here. We have a task, a classroom assignment, a Google Forms quiz, and a quest end. Now, if you aren't utilizing Google Classroom, you can create this content through a task. So right here, I can come in, I can write a fictional scenario below. I can add all of my dynamic content. If I come over to the task, I would basically come in, and this is where I could create the assignment. If they have a worksheet or any reading material that goes with it, I can upload it right here. And I'm just going to call this task 1. I just want to fill this out so I can move on to the next section. So I say do this. If I hit next, now I can enable the assignment, so that means students will actually be able to upload content into Classcraft. I can put in my due date, and like I said, the gold pieces, it's only for premium accounts, but in this case, if they turn it in, I can give them 25 XP. I can enable a reward for turning it in early, and I'll give them another 20 XP. So once that's all set, I can come next, hit discussion. I can turn on a discussion for this lesson if I want, so my students will be able to communicate back and forth. I'm going to leave that off for right now. I'm going to hit next, and I can also give them a reward for completing the objective. I'm going to lowball them and give them a 5 XP. Right here where it says self-paced progress, we have the ability just to turn that on. So if students want to work their way through the unit, they can. In this case, I'm going to leave this off because if I want to meter my students and make sure that they're all learning at the same pace, I can leave that unchecked and make sure everybody's working through everything at the same time. So when I'm all set, I can hit save. And there's my lesson 1. All saved, ready to go. I can click on it. Here's my content. Here's the task. And here's my settings. So now we have, we have the first kind of lesson set up in our quest. So if I go back here, and if I go back into Unit 1, we have Lesson 1. I want to add one more. And I want to do a Google Classroom assignment, so I'm actually going to create another learning objective right here. I'm going to call it Lesson 2. And now I'm going to integrate our Google Classroom piece. So if I click a Google Classroom assignment, I'm just going to type in this is my story. Hit next. I can add a task. So really I can go through and I can select which classroom I want to associate with what. So I'm going to go ahead and select the Morick example classroom. And here is my what is cell division assignment. So I've linked up everything within Google Classroom. I'm all set to go. And I can do the same thing here because I chose multiple classrooms to create this quiz set for. So now I have all 3 classrooms set up with all 3 assignments for their quest. The due date comes from Google Classroom, so whatever I set up on that side will automatically port over here. Student reward. Once again, I'll shoot low and give them 5 XP for completing the assignment. And then again, we can add our classroom discussion. And then we can reward students for completing the assignment. I'll give them 20 XP for finishing. I hit save, and there's lesson 2 ready to go. And you can notice that the icons change depending on if it's a task, if it's a lesson, if it's something within Google Classroom. So now that we've built out some lessons, you can also notice I can kind of drag and drop here if I want things to be a little more spread out. I have the ability to do that. So now what we have to do is connect our paths. We have to make sure our students know where to go next. So in this case, I have my little connect objectives option right here, which is this little blue icon. And now I can just connect the dots. So now when my students come in to actually go through their quest, they will have their objectives all set up, everything will be ready to go, and they'll know exactly what path to take. When I'm ready to publish it to my students, I can come over here to in the upper right hand corner where it says Show Quest. And it says, are you sure you're ready to have your students access this quest? I'm going to go ahead and hit Show Quest. And I'm not going to share this with the community, and I'll show you why in a minute. But you do have the ability to kind of share that up with the Classcraft community if you feel like you've built a really cool kind of quest line. But that's kind of the basics as far as creating your quests. And when we're all done, and we've gone through our entire lesson, I'm going to create one more objective. I'm going to put it right over here towards this mountain, and I'm just going to do a quest end. So I'll type in quest end, and I'm not going to leave a story. But once students complete the quest or complete their unit, I'll give them another 25 XP. It's all saved, ready to go, and the quest automatically pops up. So I just want to create my connection line to make sure they know that's the end. That's the path that they have to go on, and that's the end of the quest. And there we go. So we now have a quest that's created, ready to be distributed to our students. So one of the really cool things about Classcraft is not only can you utilize Google Classroom, but you can also utilize content that's already been created for Classcraft. So up here in the kind of upper right corner of your quest line, we have this My Library area. If I click on this, it's going to show me some things that I've already kind of imported. But over here on the left-hand side, there's just this Discover Lessons area. If I click on that, that's going to bring me out to an entire database of Classcraft lessons that have already been created. So in this case, we have right here this Grammar 101. If it's something I want to import, I can import that quest. I can select a class. I'm going to import that quest. And in this case, you can see I can either link it to Google Classroom or I can import it directly as they did it through Classcraft. That's up to you how you want to set it up. So I'm going to import every object as a regular task, but here it is. So this is a quest that I found online through their database. I imported it into my classroom, and now I can go in and I can go through the story. And then I can go to the phrasal verbs, conditional sentences, and I can kind of click through the different quests that are set up. So depending on how I want to set this up, I can go out, I can explore those learning objectives, and I can import them into Classcraft to be able to use them within my class quests. So that's just one of those, again, really cool features that's kind of built into it. So that is the kind of quest line where we can go in and we can create those quests, and we can kind of integrate our content for our students. And there's no limits to the amount of quests that we can create. I can create quests kind of all over this map. So you can see here, Grammar 101 set up down here. I'm going to go ahead and turn that on. So now if I go back to my main quest area, you can see I have 3 main quests set up, and I can divide this however I want, and I can have as many quests built in here as I'd like to. So if I want to keep building, let's say I'm an elementary teacher, I can have this be, English Island and Math World or something along those lines to kind of split up the sections and the different units of instruction. But we really have this entire map to work with, and then once we have that map, we have these internal maps that we can connect and really branch out the kind of board game / lesson that we want to go through with our students. So that's the overview of the quest area. Very quickly, over on the left-hand side here, I just want to touch briefly on messaging. So you do have an internal messaging system within Classcraft. So we can go and we can email all of our students that have been created, and vice versa. They have the ability to email us. We do have a classroom announcement right here. And then also, if we set up the parent portal, we can set up a parent announcement, and we can also communicate back and forth with parents as well. And all of those directions are included in the, that getting started documentation after you create your first class. So that's all there for the parents if they want to be able to join. So I wanted to be sure to kind of point that out to you as we were working through. So that is kind of the basis of everything that's included in building content for Classcraft. Whoops, I jumped into the wrong area. And the one last thing I want to go through is just some of the settings and some of the analytics that you'll have available with the free account. So the last couple things that I want to go over is over here on the left-hand side. We do have an analytics area. So if I click on that, With the free version, we're just going to get our student activity, the game feed. So we're going to see, what students doing what points have been taken away, and you kind of get a running log of everything that's going on with your students. Over here on the right-hand side, this is the student overview, which will give you more analytics. But as I said before, that's not included in the free version, only in the pay version. So you'll have to, subscribe to kind of check out some of those more advanced analytics there. But I just want to be able to show you this quickly and just give you an overview of where some of the content is. Underneath that, we have our classroom settings. So this is where we can come in and you can see here's all of our students. And if we want them to register with a username, email address, student code, we can set that up. We have our teams set up, so I can come in and I can go through the teams here as well as in the teams area. Multi-classroom, that's one of those features that's available in the premium version. So if I wanted to set it up to kind of see across a domain or across my district what teachers are utilizing Classcraft, I can set that up as well. Here's the parent portal. So we can come in and I can actually hit invite parents. I can download handouts to send to them and distribute to them, or I can email them invites and just pop in the parent email right there, and that'll send them some email communication. We also have the ability for co-teachers, again, premium license needed to do that, but you do have the ability to do that if you or your district decided to invest in that piece. So last few things here. Advanced game settings, behaviors. So instead of going through that behaviors area where we did it before, I can come directly into my settings down here, click on my game behaviors, and add the behaviors how I see fit. Same thing with our powers. We have those base set of powers, but if I'm not happy with them and I don't like what they are, I can come in and I can edit them. I can come in and I can teleport, I can give it a point scale, I can set it up however I'd like. So I can kind of manipulate and change that around if I wanted to. The sentences, this is where I can also come in, and when I talked about, students getting knocked down to 0, like I said, the majority of the time, and the way this is geared is kind of for a behavioral aspect, but as you saw, like as we're doing some of the classroom reviews, if they get knocked out, you may not want to necessarily have a kind of punishment sentence set up for students, but what you can do is you can set up different sentences in here, and you can give your students a task to do if they get knocked down to 1, and you can kind of customize those. Same thing with random events. You can kind of go through all of them that are here and edit them and change them around and kind of gear them towards what you'd like to do within your classroom. And then also in your kudos areas, we can set it up to auto-publish. I never recommend that. But now you can see if somebody sends kudos and if somebody receives kudos, they'll get XP bumps. You also want to keep an eye out. If students realize that they get XP bumps by sending kudos, you're going to have a very active classroom of everybody loving everybody. So that's another thing to kind of keep an eye on. But as we kind of go through, you can see we go through some of the game rules here. So we can have level caps, HP, AP regeneration limits, and things of that nature. We can set up the interface to customize it however we would like. We can import settings from other classes. We can connect different applications to it, and we also have the ability to archive these classrooms, so we can actually save data of the classrooms that we've already done and not necessarily lose the data, but have an archive of it if we need to refer to it later. So that's the overview that I have for Classcraft. I know I went through a lot, and I went through some of it really fast, but I wanted to be sure that I kind of kept it condensed to right around an hour for everybody. So if you do have any questions or if there's something I missed, please feel free to leave them in the chat. I'll be available to answer them. And if you do have any other questions, please feel free to email me at dlalonde, DLALONDE, @moruc.org, and I would be happy to answer any questions that you have.